More on this side.
Get started.
Yeah.
You made it.
Hi there. How are you?
Traffic's bad.
Yeah, it's good.
Nice
Exciting
to see you.
time,
It's
right?
great to have you in here.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll grab your water.
Sure. No.
Water. Clicker.
Yes.
If for any reason it's not moving great, that's where the end of it is. So sometimes you just have to really get in that direction. But you're queued up.
How much? Yeah. Well, and then ask some questions, and we'll open it up for some discussion. But I just thought some updates.
Yeah, I think it's only that night.
Okay.
Well, whatever.
Give me the hook.
Oh, really?
Just give me the hook anytime
There you are.
you're ready.
Yeah, anyone else?
It's fine. I go by both. I go by everything.
Well, you never know.
Call me in it, yeah. Great.
Cool. Well, I just want to welcome Louis Dettorre, the new commissioner, which is exciting. Have a new face, although we did love the previous commissioner. It was her time, though, to go. So, fresh new face. I know there's some wonderful things he's going to share, some topics, some things that are hot right now. I think a lot of people kind of, maybe your take on where the maybe market is going in your guys' eyes, maybe some new tech that the department's coming up with for communication, things like that, I understand is a great topic. So I will let you take the stage and rock on, buddy. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. I'm sorry again for being a few minutes late, but it's exciting times here in Arizona, and just excited to be here with you and share some updates from the department and what's going on, and also to hear really from all of you on what you're seeing out there as well. As was said, I'm Louis Dettorre. I'm the commissioner at the Department of Real Estate. I may be a new face for some of you, but I have been at the department for about 10 years in various roles. I came to the department in 2012, serving as our legislative liaison, and I did our public information as a public information officer while simultaneously serving at the Department of Financial Institutions. Maybe some of you have heard of that agency. It's now called the Department of Financial Institutions and Insurance, or Insurance and Financial Institutions, as those two agencies have merged together. But they oversee the banks and the credit unions and the mortgage lenders and mortgage bankers and all of that fun financial stuff as well. So I worked there simultaneously for about three to 5 years. It all blends together. But you know, I had the opportunity to work with our really an Arizona icon in Judy Lowe. In my humble opinion as commissioner, she served the department for almost 13 years as director. And of course, certainly before that, she was in the real estate profession as a broker and an owner in Southern Arizona for about 35 years. So, you know, she told me, she said, I'm not retiring. I am going back home to Tucson, and she's now at the Tucson Association of Realtors. So she has lots of get up and go, and she would push us with her leadership and with her vision and love for the real estate profession. So I like to believe that over the last 10 years serving with her, her 12, almost 13 years within the department, that I also absorbed that acumen, love for real estate, and the business acumen, and the responsibility and the accountability that the department has in serving all of you with our customers. So I want to share some of that information here on what's new at the department, what we've been able to accomplish over the last several years as well, but then have an open dialogue. So as I talk and as I share this information, I really enjoy the interaction and questions that you have. Anytime, raise your hand and introduce yourself. Let me know a little bit about you and any questions that you have as we go through here. I hate to just feel like it's a lecture or it's sharing. I like the questions as we go through. So thank you in advance. And here we go. So a little bit about the department as I stand squarely in front of the screen. That's all I can block all of you. So now I think I'm blocking that too. So I don't know, where should I stand? Where you put the chairs right there. No. So the Department of Real Estate, what do we do at the department? So we license salespersons and brokers, and there are, as you'll see on the following slides, about 91,000 real estate licensees in the state, and about 15% increase since 2015. So for what it's worth, Arizona is growing in both real estate professionals as well as what we see as we drive through our great state. So we approve licenses Many of you may know that we also have some regulatory ability in cemeteries as it relates to the sale of individual plots within the cemetery. So cemeteries have to get an approval through the department called a certificate of authority to operate in the state. So little nuances that we oversee as well. Membership campgrounds as well. We approve schools here in Arizona that offer pre-licensing education and continuing education, and the courses that are provided by Arizona's great educators as well. We approve instructors. Development services, I'm going to talk a little bit about an update around our subdivisions and what we're seeing around public reports and what is a public report, and just give some friendly reminders around the importance of that public report as it relates to such things as water and sanitary services or other details within a subdivision, which could be a new home build, or it could be a subdivider, investor that owns 6 or more lots in a community, and they are going to provide that information to a prospective purchaser so they know what they're purchasing and what they're getting within that community. So a lot of activity there. I'm sure no one here has heard from our investigations department or our enforcement and compliance department. I know that's not a fun process to go through as we receive public complaints, and we go through. I want to talk a little bit about our perspective on those and how we work. We want to work with you and with our public through those from a solutions perspective, and how we get into compliance should those issues arise. How many of you have heard about our homeowners association dispute process and HOAs? We love our HOAs, right?
No.
So the department doesn't oversee or license homeowners associations, nor the community management companies that often the HOA board of directors will employ or have to serve that community. But what we do have is a process our legislature gave to the department, transitioned from another agency in 2016 to us, called the HOA dispute process, that allows a homeowner or a homeowners association to file a petition with the department that alleges an allegation of a CC&R, a bylaw, a state statute related to, I wanted to build that gazebo in my backyard, but the HOA is saying that I can't build that. So I believe that I have the right to do that. The HOA believes I don't, or vice versa, and then they want to place an avenue of where they can have that dispute heard. So the department, we're the administrator of that process, where we collect the paperwork, we collect the fee that's prescribed by statute, and we package all that up and send it over to another state agency called the Office of Administrative Hearings for them to hear that issue and then make a decision and a ruling. And then it comes back to the department and it's done. So, yes, ma'am.
You say that you do not oversee the homeowner association management company, but who does?
Great question. Very good question. Your name?
Ginger Cutting, and I'm real estate for years and years in Prescott.
Ginger, great question. So in Arizona, a very common question that we receive, no one oversees from the perspective of licensure those community management companies.
Right.
They are to follow requirements of Untitled Chapter or corporate statutes around those responsibilities that are there. But as far as licensure, it's not required in Arizona.
So anybody can go in and be a homeowner association management company as long as they follow that Title 10.
Yeah, they would have to follow all of those requirements in Title 10.
And if there's a complaint about a homeowner association management company, where do you go?
Good question.
It would be a civil matter.
Okay.
So you could go to the courts.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's a great question. And often the terminology around community management company, that's why I was specific to say that, as opposed to property management company, as often is used within an HOA community, because a property management company, as we know, property management under management of individual homes, that's required. You're required to have a license, a real estate license through that. So the distinction that I make between community management company and a property management. So very good, thank you. Let's see other things that we do. So those are really it in a nutshell and from an overview perspective. There we go. Okay, so I noted that we have about 91,000 licensees in the state. Now I want to explain that from the perspective of That includes salespersons, brokers, and entities. So it's all three categories. Those aren't all individuals. In Arizona, we have about 7,500 entities or companies, as you can think. So of those, about 70,000 are active in the trenches, assisting buyers and sellers conducting real estate activity. And you can see from a historical perspective where we've been in the state. I did a little further research from what's not on this chart here, and you'll find through this. I do like charts, so I apologize in advance. But it's interesting to see the trends of where we've been and where we're going as well to paint a picture. In 2006, I believe Arizona had about 96,000 total licensees. So we're not quite there yet, and we are seeing a little bit of a slowing in the number of new folks coming into the business. Maybe a little plateau, but we'll see where that goes. There we go. It wants to go ahead of me. It says, you're taking too long. Right. Bear with me. We're getting there. Okay. How many of you are subscribed to our late breaking news email subscription list? Great. Lots of hands. If you are, you go on our website and you just put in your email address, and you won't be spammed. We don't send out a ton of things that are there, but what we do send out are things like this, our quarterly real estate bulletin, where we really want to inform everyone what's going on and what's new at the department. There's lots of discussion, especially over 2020, when it was the height of the pandemic, and there were lots of changes, lots of pressure on the department to plow through barriers as far as making classes available through host remote live streaming, and everyone was feeling that pressure. So the importance for us to communicate to all of you what's going on and try to answer your questions is just paramount. So please put your email address in, and I promise you won't be spammed. You can always unsubscribe, as they say, from that. So this was our last bulletin. I will ask a question or ask something of you. When you do see that bulletin, before you go to the back pages of that and read the disciplinary actions, that was a very, very popular part. At least read the commissioner's article.
So true.
But it's okay. It's all informative, right? Our real estate law book was updated recently. Lots of changes, as I'll talk about our legislature here in just a few minutes. But our legislature, just generally, there are about 1,300 or 1,400 bills that are introduced already, and many of those become signed into law. And any related to Title 32 that change, when we have that law book, we have to make sure that it's updated, and you all have that as a reference within your day. There is a requirement for you to have a copy of the law book, which of course could be hard copy there. It's available. You can let us know if you want one, but it's also available electronically on our website. And I prefer the electronic version because you can do a keyword search, and then everything is electronic these days as well. But it is available there. The other picture here is just as a reminder. In Arizona right now, with all the growth that we're seeing in the busy Arizona market. Affordable housing, we haven't heard anything about that discussion or that challenge, right? Is inventory a challenge now? Yeah, the shortage of that, and that changes from month over month, and lots of economists are giving lots of different figures and projections around that. But what's common, a common note is that we need housing, right? And we need affordable housing. Companies that are moving to Arizona, relocating their headquarters, seeing Arizona as an opportunity, lots of growth in the state, or those that are here and have been here in Arizona for a long time and want to continue to be able to keep their great staff and have housing that's available, especially new home buyers. Yes, ma'am.
It's just, I feel like there needs to be somebody looking at how we're capturing that data, because if we're only doing it off of the MLS, apparently a lot is not happening on the MLS, so it's giving a skewed picture of where everything is at, and it doesn't seem like the data capturers are doing.
Yeah, that's a really good note. I can tell you from some of the things that we have been invited to from the department to provide, some insider perspectives. And I think that many housing advocates have reached out and are reaching out to the Association of Realtors, and it's really an all hands on deck approach to that affordable housing conversation. And there's lots of different approaches to that. I believe that our legislature and our policymakers are looking at this conversation really strongly this year. And it's a challenge, not just in Arizona, but it's a challenge nationwide. And Arizona, I know, wants to be competitive in that as we continue to grow as a state. But not just grow as a state, but for our Arizona residents, longtime Arizona residents, we want opportunities for all that are within there. So I appreciate you saying that. If you have an opportunity to share that with MLS as well, or the Association of Realtors, I think that would be a great comment to them. And I'm glad to pass that along to them as well.
Thanks.
Last time I hit it a couple times and it went too fast, so I'm being patient.
Turn it on, turn it off.
Okay, this is just a couple things, outreach and the communication by the department, throughout on various topics. This opportunity here today is really the best part of my job. I feel, to be able to share what's going on and what we're doing as well, because it may not be commonly known. We talk a lot about brokerage audits, talking about compliance here for a second. So the department has very ambitious targets around when we start an audit, for instance, and when we want to complete that audit. In some states, from years ago with Commissioner Lowe, we did research in some other states, and it was common that they would take like 200 days to complete a brokerage audit because they could. There was no requirement that they finish any faster. Well, from a broker perspective, you're up at night, you're probably stressing about going through that process. It's not fun to go through. So we set ambitious goals to work through that process effectively, quickly as possible, to be thorough. And we have a goal of about 52 days, which we're not quite meeting. We're at 56 days to do that on average. But as I'll talk about our Arizona management system in just a bit, we really do have ambitious targets to meet those compliance areas too, knowing that on the other side of that coin, you want it to be done just like we want to finish our work too. So this slide here, the AAR has a really good property management summit every year, and had an opportunity to talk about the audit process and specifically about how a broker licensee can be successful through that compliance process and interacting with the agency. And that was the last time that I saw Commissioner Lowe down in Tucson, and I told her, sit in the front row and you critique me going through. That's always fun. All right, talking about public reports here for a second. How many are familiar with the public report and the importance of the public report? Great, a couple of hands. For those that don't know, this is probably a space that a real estate licensee may not work in every day, and work in, especially in development. But I want to take just a second and talk about why it is important related to the public report. So the department approves public reports. We issue it to a subdivider. Subdivider is someone that owns 6 or more lots or parcels, and it goes through all those other things I talked about the assurities that are provided to a prospective purchaser. So the water, sanitary services, where are the schools, where's the amenities, is there going to be a pool, when's all that going to be delivered? Why it's important to you is that a subdivider is not just a new home builder. It could be someone that owns 6 or more lots or parcels in a development. Oftentimes, that individual doesn't think, I'm a subdivider, I'm just an individual, I'm an investor that owns 6. And they don't have a public report, it's not updated, and then the real estate licensee, a lot sells within that 6, and then we receive a complaint. Okay, we receive a complaint at the department, and then we have to settle the fact that, well, something was sold without a public report, and a public report needs to be issued, or needs to be updated, or needs to be approved. So it kind of go hand in hand. To stay out of that whole mess, the question could be, identifying if a public report is required, and then you don't have to deal with that. So really just a proactive step in knowing that I'm related to the public report, even if it's not something that you work in all the time. So we talk with the counties throughout the state often, Navajo County, Maricopa County, Pima County, Pinal, you name it, our Arizona 15 counties. They're planning and zoning departments on a lot of the challenges they're facing around lot split issues that are there, and you know, the water availability is putting a lot of stress on that discussion, specifically around existing residents that live in an area and see new development that's happening, and they wonder, are the laws being followed within that development? We have a lane within what our jurisdiction oversight is, but the counties do as well. So it's just really discerning that. You may have heard some of that discussion and the pressure around water really being out there. Oh, great, very good, thank you. We have an advisory board at the department that are 10 governor-appointed members. Many of you may have heard about this. They provide recommendations to the department on various things about our operations, as well as things that are going on in the industry, in the field that we should know about as well, and have that discussion. It's a public meeting, which is why I really want to talk about it for a second and share that with you, and know that many of the meetings are hybrid meetings, and anyone can attend and listen to that discussion, that process, should there be interest. Not that you have enough to do already, but if you are interested in reading about our performance in 2021, you can go to our website and print this down and put it on your nightstand for a little nighttime reading, should you be interested. And this talks about our performance and stats and just a general update. We provide this update to the governor. So let's talk about some of the issues that we're receiving, both through phone calls as well as complaints. And again, I share this information as a proactive step of what we're hearing about and what's going on. So you can filter that in your day, in your work, and maybe this will bring some insight to some of those common things that we're hearing. Yes, Ginger?
I was going to say, what Judy used to say is what's making my phone ring. She would always, and that would perk your attention. You would just kind of.
Absolutely. So, and these are things that I'll get a call about and say what's going on in this area, or what do I do, from a broker, as well as seeing it through. We have Abby Hansen, our chief of staff. She manages we use Google Dashboard for this, but she will take the incoming complaints and she'll categorize all of them, and it's really interesting to see about the type of things we get, both in our jurisdiction as well as not. So I usually review that and try to put it together for what are the most common that are there. Presenting all offers continues to be a question and a challenge, especially from a consumer that'll say, I don't know that my offer was considered. That's there. But then also from a rejected offer standpoint, complaints that we receive, questions that we get around the maintaining of a rejected offer for at least 1 year, that's required. And then if that transaction moves forward and it goes to escrow, or it just follows the general retention period of 5 years as well. So really a lot of diligence that's there. And again, from a licensee standpoint, if you have that documentation that's there, if the department receives a complaint, it's just dealt. This is not an issue as well. So just a reminder there. Agents entering property without permission, if you believe it. And I'll give one example of that. So we had a disciplinary action most recently, and an agent entered a property without permission, and it turned into more than that. She took a couple pictures off the wall. I think she tried on some clothes. She had a snack out of the refrigerator, was an allegation, and took a bath in the bathtub. It was so we get all kinds of things. That come through. Must have been nice, but that was lit. So anyway, suffice it to say, she was terminated from her brokerage, but the department moved through and her license was revoked. But I use that example to say it all started with her entering without permission. But then probably the other things were not permissible either. But anyway, so we do hear all kinds of things at the department. Remembering that when you have a real estate license, and Commissioner Lowe always talked about this too, you never can avoid the fact that you have a license as it relates to disclosing that you are a real estate licensee. So remembering that in your interactions as well as specifically related to the transaction. Advertising, we don't see any advertising issues, right, as licensees or note that. No, it's why I say like that. A common issue that we still hear is just clear and prominent related to the employing broker on advertising related to a specific property, keeping that in mind. We receive plenty of complaints from other real estate professionals as well as we do from the public, especially relating to advertising that come in. So actually in January, it's about 25% of the complaints that we received were from other real estate professionals. I don't bring that up to say that that's a bad thing at all. We review all complaints that come in, but I did think that it was important to note that specifically to, you may see something that's going on out there and say that's not right, you know, related to that or otherwise, and you can let us know about that. But we treat all of those the same as we review it. Failure to disclose material facts related to a property. Talking to E&O insurance providers, they note that as a very common issue that they receive from an E&O insurance claim perspective. You know, wood infestation, water damage, those type of things as well. So as you identify those, that's important matter to address from a disclosure perspective. Falsified documentation, if you believe it, especially related to digital signatures. That's a new trend I think that we're seeing more of, and it certainly is takes lots of time to review and understand from our perspective as well. Treating all parties fairly is really important, as we know as well. I talked about public reports, so I'll leave that be. The last item that's on there is really just a reminder to me to say, you know, within the complaints or within the calls that I get when my phone rings, a very common item is just a reminder to say be kind to one another through this. It's a very busy market, and lots is happening out there, so the stress is certainly understandable, right? But some of the things that we receive that are being said to one another, just, you know, can just everybody take a deep breath and be kind. And that's not just in our space, right? That's throughout. How am I doing on time?
You're fine.
I'm fine. My office sometimes will tell me that I get a bit windy.
Doing good.
Thanks. Our message center, just a really quick plug for how many of you know about our message center on our website. Good, everybody. So it's the way that you can submit a question to a live person throughout our entire department on various things, applications and questions that you have. We really work to be responsive within 24 hours with you. To put it in context, we received last year about 60,000 messages through that, applications and questions. And it turns out to be like 300 or so a day that we can respond to or work through. So we spend a lot of time in it to work to be responsive. We have metrics and goals about being very timely with you. So as you interact with us, we're working. I won't ask for your patience because I know that we need it when we need it and we need it now. But just to put it into context, we work really hard around the yes, Ginger.
Sorry, that is the only way that we can reach you, correct? We cannot call any longer.
We do. You can call.
Okay.
And I probably on the first weekend I put our phone number on our website.
Okay.
I thought that was important. We also have worked to develop and implement a call center. And when we think of call center, we think of I don't know what we think of, but we think of call center of it's just being rerouted. It's really not that. We did some analysis and looked and said, what are the most common questions that are coming into the department? And we overlaid technology onto that, and we answered those questions by division. So when you hear those prompts, it's not to bury you in a recording. It's to provide answers to those most common questions, and then you can proceed to talk to the division that you need to. Go back here, and then we'll come up here.
So are you going like AI? Is that what it's going to be?
Maybe.
Okay.
No, the first step was to really answer those top questions.
Okay.
Related to that, and when you call in, it doesn't. Then if someone doesn't answer, go to a voicemail. You actually hear probably
Okay.
within a great percentage of the answer, but if you don't, you can talk to someone. But your point around AI is well taken. The state has invested, I think, some resources in looking at enterprise services around things like a chat bot or things that pop up on the website that are answering those things. So it's incredible what's out there. Some of it's not yet tested, but we're going to look at ways that we could be the most customer centric that we can, answering those questions. We'll come here and then we'll come back.
I was just going to say, hearing what kind of volume you guys go through and knowing how lean a ship you're running, it's fantastic how fast you get back on the message center.
Thank you.
So I'm a phone call kind of guy. I like phone calls, but I mean the message center is more efficient on your end. You're not on the phone all the time. You don't want to get through an order, and I've never had a situation where I felt like it was a delayed response.
Thank you for saying that. We actually had a internal meeting yesterday. We were talking about some of our customer goals. As we walk through, we have to always put ourselves in the shoes of the customer, that when they do call us, it's not a why did you call us, and we need to be very helpful through all means. So thank you for that feedback. I'll share that. Yes?
On the message center, can you request a call from that person who's answering you? Because I've gotten like 4 or 5 messages deep that, via text we're answering each other, but it would have taken a 30-second phone call to explain what I really needed to accomplish.
I think that's a great question, and I appreciate it. One of the items that we're working on is to put together a metric for how many times we go back and forth and what those common issues are. If it's related to a specific document, I'll give you an example. The Corporation Commission. Those documents that we're asking for from them are available for us to look up as well. So when we have multiple back and forths with you to say, will you provide that, or you're missing a document, can we look that up and then say, we have that, we have what we need, and cut that down? But to your point, I'll take that back. That could be a step that we have that we need to call.
For me, it's always been licensing, like when I'm trying to switch branches or switch someone over, and like it doesn't always require all the forms. I could just have done a simple change. So, and it took 6 direct messages back and forth to get to that point. And then at that point, I'm frustrated. The person who's answering me is probably like, "What, is this guy stupid?"
I'll take that back and definitely share that. I'm a person that when I call, and I admit, when I call and I ask for help, I don't follow the prompts. I say customer service repeatedly to get through. And we have to know that that's not a bad thing. We all have needs to get through, and it's just to overcome that.
Well, I think in that specific, my specific example, that person had been working with me on it, and she knew what I was trying. Like, we both knew where we were trying to go. Like, but neither of us were saying the right thing. So had I just picked up the phone and talked to that specific person, not started over, it probably would have been resolved in 30 seconds for both.
I've talked to her about that and our team, but no, we all want to meet the same outcome, which is customer satisfaction. So, thank you for that. This is where you search on our website for public reports. We talked about that a bit, so we won't hang there. You can search for anything. I think we have public reports on there that go back to like 1980 or so. If there's an older community where you can't find it, you can submit a public records request, and we'll provide that to you if we have it. That's there. A little nuance of state government I wanted to share with you. I talked about our legislature being in session now. The department is going through what's called a continuation hearing, or sunset process, as some say. It's not unique to just the Department of Real Estate. It's consistent with other state agencies as well. In 2012, the legislature said you can exist for 10 years, and then when we get to the end of that 10 years, the agency goes through an audit with our Auditor General, so we get audited too, and their recommendations that we put in place that were given to us. We've implemented about 90% of those recommendations already, mostly administrative, like, what's your process and policy and procedures manual say about this? How do you deal with various things? That report is public as well. Like I said, we've addressed the majority of it, and it was mostly administrative. That was there. So we have to testify in front of the legislature to get a recommendation to continue. They gave us a recommendation for 8 years, which is now the customary period of time the legislature approves agencies for as well. I want to get to your questions in time as well, so just a few more slides here. But I want to talk about what we're going to focus on in 2020. focusing on our Arizona management system. So for those of you that haven't heard what AMS is, as we call it, AMS is an intentional management system around continuous improvement that Governor Ducey directed all agencies to implement and gave us a pathway to do it. To first and foremost identify who your customers are, what are your customers' needs, and how do you serve them. So you all are real estate licensees and professionals are our customer. The public is a really important part of that. Our mission by statute is to protect the public through their real estate transaction, through licensure and regulation. But you all, as our customer, over 91,000 of you interacting with us, we are to serve you through those licensing applications and approvals and be timely and efficient through that. We are going to focus a lot on technology and improving our available online services, and that's the way, as was noted by you, sir, thank you for the comment around our message center. The way that we have been effective with our 25, usually up to about 30 staff to serve 91,000 licensees, the building industry, education providers, as well as the public, is through that technology and the availability of that. So we have to continue to evolve and put those tools in place. Ideas that you have, as you'll see the customer service survey here in just a minute, to let us know. We're partners in this with our profession. Okay, I talked about customer communication and outreach and development services. It gives me a second chance if I want to say something else. Now, in our education services. So how many of you have heard, or a common question that I'll get are licensees, professionals that are coming into the business, are they adequately trained? Are our education standards right? How do they compare to other states? Lots of different opinions around that. So I want to just highlight this from the perspective of the department is focusing on education, as we have over the last several years, specifically to our pre-licensing education, the 90 hours that are taken to get your license, and then of course you pass an exam through Pearson VUE. Those 90 hours are very 90 hours is very consistent with other states. Some states have more, some states have less, but those 90 hours provided by approved schools, that curriculum needs to be updated to the department's standards that were updated last in, I believe, 2019. So lots of focus on education in the past related to continuing education courses. Those continuing education courses by our statute are approved for a period of 4 years. A lot can change in 4 years. It's to the school to ensure that curriculum is updated per state laws as well. So we're, again, that partnership aspect, the school that knows that curriculum that course is not updated, is not correct, they need to update that and submit it to the department. We worked on updating our examinations that are offered by Pearson VUE. They're our vendor related to exams. Commissioner Lowe and I looked at that, and we worked to make our exams more specific to the practice of real estate in Arizona, both from a broker exam as well as the salesperson's exam. And we worked to update those test questions every year with subject matter experts in Arizona in the industry. There are brokers that do not teach pre-licensing education, and we're really focused on that. So just a quick plug around the importance of education. That's not just done through continuing education, through those 24 hours, but it's also through the engagement with your brokers, with your brokerage, and other leaders and mentors within the industry. I say that to both new agents that are coming into the business. Find a mentor, find someone that can provide you answers to your questions, a path. We've all had mentors and in all of our lives. I hope, at least. I know that I've been blessed by some great ones as well. And both from the perspective of individuals that have been in the profession for a long time. How do we identify opportunities that you can share your wealth of information with somebody that's new, that's coming in. So just a little plug there as well. And I think that's about it. The last thing that's here before I get to the survey, is just a reminder to all of you. We have lots of public meetings, we have lots of stakeholder engagements that don't really have agendas, and it's just a free-flowing conversation around hot topics. You're all invited and welcome to those. We notice them in our bulletin. Many of the meetings are hybrid, where there's a virtual component to it. So you're most welcome to let us know how you want to interact with us, how you want to participate, and give us some feedback. That's there. So we're partners in the protection of the public as well. Commissioner Lowe would always say that we always want to do it the right way, and she just said that was by doing it the Arizona way. So I want to share that with you as well. This is a QR code that my office put together. I didn't know how to do this or even the idea of it. This is the free version, which is why there's a dinosaur in the middle, because our other version we used that had our logo had expired. So if you all know how to do it, very good. You don't need me to tell you. So that's going to take you to our Google survey, and it's also available on our website. Let us know how we're doing, but also ideas or feedback in other areas, not just within the department for how we're serving you, but things that you're hearing out there as well, and how we can be most helpful to you. I'll leave it there for a second. The next slide just has my email address on it, and you're all welcome to contact me with any questions that you have. And that's it. I really appreciate being here, and thank you, and glad for any questions. Yes, sir.
Based on the page you had up about complaints, and I understand from brokerage to brokerage training changes, has the department ever considered increasing the path to licensure? It just seems like, for anybody that's been in the business for a while, it's like,
sure,
it's just getting harder and harder and harder. Is there any talk, or how do you feel about the pathway to licensure to getting more difficult and maybe more real life, stuff to learn at real estate school?
No, it's a great question. Your name, sir?
Johnny Walker. I'm
John.
My home.
Thank you. Great question. It's important to note that what the department does through our actions or the programs that we put in place, as far as forms and other pathway to licensure, is really dictated by our state statutes. Within original licensing prescribes 90 hours of education. The department, even if I did have a thought that there should be more hours of education, it would have to be passed at our legislature that would have to prescribe different standards that are specific to obtaining that license. Related to education, like I said, a lot of comments and a lot of feedback on both sides around the education, the 24 hours, not being useful, being very repetitive, every 2 years they're taken. Also, so how can we refresh that education? How can we make it more specific to what you're dealing with in your interactions? A very valid point. It's brought up at our advisory board, and that's going to be something that we're going to look at from the flexibility that's within our rules to expand out those topics to make things more available and more options that are there. Another example, and I'll get back to answering your question more specifically, is how many of you have heard about the out-of-state license recognition program? So I use that as an example within this conversation of our legislature passes a program that creates a pathway for folks that are licensed in another state that obtain that license, help hold that license for at least a year, become a resident in Arizona, pass a state-specific exam here in Arizona, and they can use those qualifications for licensure in the other state to obtain a license here in Arizona. That's a program and a pathway that agencies implement specific to things that pass at the legislature. So the short answer to your question is, unless some specific standards are prescribed in our statute that gives the department the ability to look at those requirements, we have to exercise the flexibility in what we have to make sure that our education is the best that it can be within those parameters that are there. Does that get to your question?
It does, but you also, I would be absolutely in agreement with that. I think that new licensees need to have a mentor, and they need to be able to show that they have a mentor for certain many transactions. Sure. And they also should be required further education, maybe up to 2 years, and they should be required to continue that education. And I think that if we need to go to the state legislature and say, let's talk about passing this, I think it's required, because protecting our public out there from new licensees who clearly don't have the experience or don't have someone helping them. It can be detrimental, and it affects us as real estate professionals.
And we've talked, and Ginger and John, we've talked about that at the department for the last several years. Specifically, Commissioner, we would call that post-licensing education. Some states have those requirements, but that's built into what they can do. So if we said, for instance, well, you have to go back and you need to do 10 more hours of education after you've had your license.
Somewhat
You
like
know, so-
an apprenticeship.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly,
Right.
like they do with the appraisers.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure, or inspectors.
Which I think that's where the mentorship could come into play, if there were a mandatory mentorship
Mm-hmm.
for new licensees. And honestly, the broker that they sign with first should probably be that mentor,
Provide that.
and provide that.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of brokers that are, you know, a really low, what's the word I'm like they only charge like, you know, okay, I'm gonna only charge you $100. And you just do whatever you want, and I've
Sure.
got friends in real estate who are like, oh yeah, my broker only charges me X, and I'm like,
And they provide nothing.
and they provide no oversight,
Sure.
and so,
It's I received the point, and it's well understood. And until there is a requirement or that discussion does happen, and I encourage you to talk to the Association of Realtors or other industry groups that have a voice at the legislature as well, not just from the perspective of another agent is putting more requirements on a profession. I think that's important. But until then, let's just talk about mentorship as being important, specifically within your brokerage too. Yes, ma'am.
And just like, I would just say, I don't know who would do it, and I know Arizona's not good about telling people what they can charge for things, but it seems like there should be just a watchdog of some sort that when they do go to these mentorship and apprentice programs, that there's a reasonable amount that people charge, and it's not like, oh, but we're gonna take, we're gonna take
Sure.
like a
That's
lot
a good point.
of, so it's a fair exchange. I mean, a lot of people do fair things, but there's always that one, the predators are always out there.
Right.
So
Always
I'm
that
saying for the
balance.
1%.
Balance that. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just Joan Pike out here. Just based on what we're talking about, what's the percentage of brokerages that are really small? Because that makes a difference with this whole mentorship. Like one or two people and they bring someone new, but isn't it really high that are?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we all love the data, right? It's all about defining that. But no, we don't have a way within getting licensed that it's broken down into the size of brokerage, so I don't have that on hand. But I think your feeling is probably right that there's a lot of small businesses, a lot of smaller brokerages as well, and however we define small, medium, and large. So
One more
sure.
question. Armless or MLS, do you have any jurisdiction over them?
No.
Okay, so if there's something happening in an MLS system and that whole organization isn't fixing it, there's no complaint you can make to
Yeah.
anybody?
So I should further clarify. So it really depends on what the complaint is within MLS, and there might be some nexus between and
Like going into like
a listing or activity that occurs there. And if you have a question or there's something specific, you can file a complaint with us and we'll review it. I know that MLS has rules around their conduct within the MLS and what can be placed there, and I think they have a structure for how they deal with violations that are there too. So many things are outside of our scope, and we'll direct those to MLS. But there can be occasions where there's some crossover, and I don't have those items top of mind. So I would just say if you have a question or there's a problem, then let us know about it and we'll look into it further. We'll go here and now come back to you.
Thanks, Commissioner. My name is John Dorn, here with my home group.
Hi, John.
So I've got a specific question about competing brokerage, right? It seems to play in the gray area quite a bit. And specifically, the claims of stay in the house for 6 months or leading on the MLS with 72-hour sale seems to be an unfair advantage to be able to do that when us as ethical agents approaching that would never promise that or never lead with, a my home group sale. So how is that addressed and why? It just feels like, at least for me, and I'm sure there's a lot of agreement, that we play by the rules, where they're playing in a really gray area. So is that something that's on the agenda or that's being looked at?
So a great question, John. Thank you for that. And I'll say this isn't the first question that I've had around this area, and this certainly is causing lots of conversation out there. And I want to start from the beginning on this. You know, whether it's related to a real estate company that more focuses on technology. And we have lots of names or examples for that. I won't use them here. And then we have other changing business models and other structures that we're seeing. Arizona, I'd say just through my own personal observation and from what I've heard as well, Arizona really seems to be a test case for a lot of new innovation and a lot of different strategies related to real estate, but also related to other industries as well. So we often hear about these things first, right? Any company or any entity that is conducting real estate activity in Arizona needs an Arizona real estate license. Those other companies that we can think of, they all have a real estate license, and they're held to the same standards as everyone based on what our statutes, our rules, and our regulations say. So when we receive a complaint around a specific issue, we review that to the extent of, can we prove a violation of our real estate statutes, and take that to the extent that's appropriate that we can as well. It's an evolving conversation. There's lots of competition that's out there, and to your specific point, these are things that we look into and we hear every day to take it to the extent that it is a violation of our Arizona statutes. And this won't be the last example of a new business model that has lots of discussion. So I don't think that answered your question specifically, but I will say that we look at all of those things as they come in, and certainly hear all the discussion around them, and know there's a level of complexity in relation to what the department can do with what we see there related to this brokerage or that brokerage or any of those. So we take all of that seriously and take it to the extent that we can, to be fair and consistent as well in what those determinations are.
So is there a path for us as agents to elevate that, to bring it more to attention? I mean, is it reporting?
Yeah.
I mean, what's a path for us to continue to make sure that that's being looked at and addressed?
Yeah, I would say that in relation to a violation of a situation, or whether you want to file it as a complaint with us, and then we review it through that, within discussion around industry groups, industry leaders around changing business models and how we can provide more education around what those look like. You know, I referenced real estate technology companies. A lot of that discussion was around not understanding too what's happening. You know, what do they do for the traditional versus the changing models as well. So continuing to talk about things, I think, is important, and I would encourage you to do that. But yes, we can receive items as complaints, and we'll look into that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, I was just going to speak to maybe as an overall from my perspective as the DB, when I see the complaints come through, and every complaint is investigated, every complaint requires a response from me, and I would say in the last year, more than 80% of them, the department said this is not our jurisdiction. After we looked, you'd have to go here or go there. It's not our job to look at this. It doesn't fall under our guidelines. So they are looking at everything. I know that because they're sending me stuff that I send replies to, and they send back, okay, this case has been closed, you know, or our investigation has been completed. So I know that they are looking at a majority. I'd say everything that comes through that arises to, hey, this doesn't look right, they'll reach out to me, and I'm sure they're reaching out to other brokers in the state saying, hey, what do you know about this? Send me your response.
And you love hearing on all those letters, little love notes, right?
Oh, I love when I get an email that says you have an email from the message center. I love those. It makes me feel great.
When I see those come through too, and I get a lot of those notices on my phone, but yet my phone's not on our network, so I can't open it there. But then I'll be curious, what does it say? So I've gotten better in this role of saying, all right, we'll look at it tomorrow too. But I feel the same thing of, all right, what is it? What does it say? To your point, if I could add just a little context as well, just to add on, I really appreciate what you said, but applying our Arizona management system, giving an example of that way that we look at our processes and say, is this streamlined? About 3 years ago, we looked at our complaint process, and I believe we made some improvements in relation to that. We receive many things that come in that are complaints like, I didn't get my earnest money back. I didn't get my security deposit. Things that are really in relation to a landlord-tenant issue or another agency as well that's not within our jurisdiction. How do we be more responsive to them of where they should go, as well as not then sending that letter to you for you to respond to that and taking up your time as well on things that are really right to go to another agency, another resource. Maybe it's a civil matter or contract matter as well. So trying to just take each process, each item, and go, where should this be the most efficient? How do we move along and help the consumer through that, as well as not taking up unnecessary resources from all perspectives. Yes, Gina?
Licensing an out-of-state individual who wants to license in Arizona and is not licensed in another state previously.
Yes.
Is that possible?
They can be licensed. They have to follow the same licensing requirements as everyone else. So the only thing really that the out-of-state license recognition, what could be alleviated or perceived as alleviated through that, is not having to take the education again.
Okay.
They still have to pass an exam and go through those other requirements, and that's if they're a resident that's here. But if you are just obtaining a license and you don't meet those qualifications that are there,
right,
you have to pass. You have to go to school. You have to do everything else that anyone would.
So if they're not an Arizona resident,
Yes.
They can still get a license.
Yes.
they can still get a license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I want to hire a transaction coordinator from another state, and they're going to be licensed.
Yes, they need to go through all the licensing requirements here in the state of Arizona.
And then they can get a license.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, John?
Is there any conversation between your department and the Department of Veterans Affairs addressing VA offers getting accepted? There's like a mystique around a VA offer.
Yeah.
That's making it really difficult for veterans to buy in this
Yeah.
market. Is there any conversation, or would you be willing to have conversation? with
It's
the
a great
department?
question, John, and I would say that there has been some, but not enough. How many of you know G2 Verado? You do, and you do. That's great. So G2 is he's an Arizona licensee. He is the state director for Arizona for the VA rep, Veterans Offenders Real Estate Professionals. He's contributed some articles to in our bulletin around these important topics as well, and always pick his brain related to what are the veteran affairs issues, and specific to real estate, and how we can have more of a conversation around that. I'd be welcome to any ideas that you have around that as well. Make sure you have my card. But yes, I think the more conversation that we can have around these issues specific to veterans as well, to provide housing and all things related to real estate, we need to have that. So the answer is some, but not enough. But something that yes, definitely willing to explore, find solutions. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you see the direction of short-term rental restrictions going regarding municipalities? Obviously, HOAs can have restrictions. Are you getting pressures to, like South Scottsdale in particular?
Yeah.
They've just implemented noise ordinances. Are there any pressures to make changes from a municipality perspective?
I thought these were going to be softball questions. No, it's a very good question. Thank you for that. So remembering relates to our licensing statutes, our licensing laws. For short-term rentals, which is defined by our statutes 30 days or less, it doesn't require a real estate license. And there's been lots of conversation around short-term rentals and lots of pressures, lots of conversation around the challenges of short-term rentals in specific communities. Probably more than others. Some communities have taken the position that their HOAs are actually restricting short-term rentals within that. So that's a layer of complexity over the municipality that doesn't want to allow short-term rentals, but are forced to, I believe, by state law at this point. I think there's a few bills at the legislature around short-term rentals, allowing those to be banned, specifically in that municipality can ban those. Lots of discussion around it. It would require some action at the legislature to reverse that. And we'll see where it goes. But from the department's perspective, we just watch that discussion. If we receive a complaint around a short-term rental, what we look at is to see, before we just close the complaint without saying it's a short-term rental, we try to identify whether or not that company is doing both short-term rentals as well as longer-term. Oftentimes there's some nexus that's there, and it may not be common. So lots of discussion around it, lots of pressure for change in relation to certain communities, I believe. Is that about right? Mm-hmm. That there is? Yeah.
I've seen a lot of, I have a lot of clients that are interested in purchasing short-term rentals, and we're seeing a lot of them pop up that are active Airbnbs that are making $80,000 a year profit.
Sure.
And one of my lenders let me know that area, there's a lot of
Well, and with the availability of housing being what it is, as well as during the pandemic, we've seen that a lot of workers are wanting to work remotely or other opportunities to do that. So it's adding pressure in that whole area for that conversation as well. I think from the I don't speak for the governor, but I think from the perspective of the legislature as well, looking at that as seeing it as an opportunity for investment as well. But there's other things that are popping up as the discussion around that that add more pressure to it. So. Yes, sir.
Just a question just related to that. So we have a lot of agents who delve into the investment realm, and have you run into any complaints that delve into that gray area of someone went through Airbnb for 2 months and then something happened? I mean, Airbnb obviously has their overlays for terms and conditions that everybody abides to, but has anybody who stayed at any of the Airbnb for longer than that 30 days filed a complaint with AD area?
Yeah.
Where does that go?
That's a good question. So I can't think of any specific complaint, but I'd say that generally that if a company, or if there's I want to say this correctly, if there's a pattern of those things happening frequently, it can easily turn into not being a short-term rental situation as well. And that's why when we do receive a complaint that's specific to short-term, we do investigate that and look at and ask lots of questions as well to understand, is there the option for a 30-day rental to transition into a longer rental? Or better yet, a company that says we do short-term rentals, but should you wish to use one of our preferred agents for the sale of your home or for some other real estate related activity as well, there may be issues that they're not.
Well, I'm just more concerned about that gray area that can arise between having to sign up through the Airbnb site, having no direct contact or contracts with the end property owner. Mm-hmm. And then having some kind of dispute arise out of that obviously there's the overlay of Airbnb here telling you that this is all you can do, but I'm sure obviously a consumer can always come to a department and file a complaint. It's just this new area that I think is there's a gray area, and I think we're going to have to address how we handle those complaints, because it's come to me on my desk, and I'm like, you went through the site, I don't know what to do. It's hard to know what to do with it. Obviously we investigate them, and we talk to our agents about specific as pertains to the real estate license and stuff like that. But there's just a huge gray area that gets brought up in those cases.
I'll take that back. It's really good. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Patricia Burke with the Arizona Real Estate. I was wondering about the water. You touched on that briefly, and what the department role is in determining the future of.
Thanks, Patricia. No, it's a big question, right? Lots of conversation around water in Arizona for the last several years, with this year being no exception. So I'd say, from the department's perspective, we have on our website information that should encourage any prospective purchaser to go to research the availability of water. That takes them to the Department of Water Resources, a lot of their resources as well. We have on our website that information as well. From a licensee perspective, you can encourage them to answer their questions by doing that research. From a statewide perspective, if any of you listened to the governor's state speech, he talked about the tremendous resources he's putting into the water discussion, whether it be the desalinization discussion. There's lots of action that's been taken around the drought contingency plan that you hear over the last several years as well. Not speaking for him, but the water is a huge discussion. Relation to new home builds in Arizona, or that public report, again, the importance of that public report. As a part of that, a subdivider is to obtain a certificate of assured water supply from the Department of Water Resources that certifies that there's going to be 100 years of water, right, within that. So that's from the nexus with the department, that we require that all that be provided as a relation to a subdivision, no exception related to that. There were times, especially during the pandemic, where ADWR, Water Resources, was working really hard to ensure that they were being timely in the issuance of the reports, and we would get some exemption requests from well, I wasn't able to get that certificate of water assurity from ADWR. Can we just proceed? And we would say unequivocally no, until that's obtained. There is he's talking about gray areas within our statutes. There are lots of gray areas we hear about or see as in relation to the public report is six or more lots or parcels, and then you have all of those disclosures that you have to get, all the certifications that come in. Well, what happens when you have 5? When it's a minor land division in a county with 5, and they're building on a dry lot.
Yeah, like in the Yavapai.
Right, and water can be hauled. And those are property rights around a purchaser, somebody that purchases that. They should know what they're purchasing, and that's a choice that they make. But there's not the same requirement as within a subdivision, and many consumers may not know the difference. Maybe they don't, they're just excited to get into that home. Land may be a little bit cheaper there, whatever the circumstances are. So that also pulls into the discussion of water availability, and can you drill a well, and how do you go through that process, and then the trucking of water. So there's lots of pressure that relates to the availability of housing, to the ways that we provide it, to what are the requirements and statutes, and lots of gray areas. So as we receive complaints that relation to that, of were they avoiding the public report requirement, were they acting in concert, did they intend to do that, or are they just doing what's available to them to provide, to develop that's there. It's a very complex conversation, and one that we're going to be having for a while. We'll go here, and then we'll come to you, Ginger. Then we'll come to you.
Sorry,
Yes.
I know I've asked a lot of questions, but I just
Okay.
so like Rio Verde, because like if you bought a house in Rio Verde, they said you had 100 years of water, and then like Scottsdale and Rio Verde have an issue, and then now they're like, well, maybe we won't have water. Like, I mean, do they have you guys like started discussing like how you
There's lots of
that's out of
discussion.
scope probably, but
No,
yeah.
there's lots of discussion around that in that specific area as well, that we're looking into and to do. But again, it just comes down to what's occurring, what can be proven, and what ultimately for the residents that are there, have been there for a long time, as well as those developers that are creating that activity there. What's the solution to that?
Right.
When you walk, the water is the solution, but how do we get there? So yeah, lots of discussion around that. We'll come here, and then we'll come up to you.
I was just going to ask what you're seeing in economic forecasts. What are you seeing from the state level? We just attended, Lawrence Yoon popped in the other day up in Prescott, and it was great information. 2021 was definitely the year in across the entire nation for valuation of homes, but 2022 is not. And so, and it was interesting what he had to say, and it's kind of, I'm seeing a little bit, I mean, inventory is definitely an issue. I'm seeing a little bit of a softening, some properties staying on the market a little bit long. Prices are being reconsidered, and with interest rates forecasted to go up, and our, beautiful inflation situation that we've got going on, I think that we're going to be seeing a change. I just want to know what you're saying from the state.
Lawrence is great. He's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal mind. Enjoy every opportunity to hear from him. So I'm not an economist, so I have lots of thoughts, but we'll put those all in for what they're worth. But one thing that we've learned over the last couple years is that expect the unexpected, right? You think that it's going in one way as well, and then it changes. So we've had a lot of pressure, and the demand for housing just remains, specifically in Arizona. And I'm excited for the growth that you see from the perspective of the semiconductor plants that are moving into areas of the state, and lots of manufacturing. And what comes with all of that are workers, right? And the need for that. So those are coming into the state, but also what does that mean for existing residents of Arizona? Where's the flexibility there? Where do they move as well? I think the demand is going to remain high, but there's lots of pressure that's on how we sort through that. You know, the building and the creating the availability of the housing, the interest rates is a big point. And then are we going to see the valuation increases or the same areas there that we've seen in the years past? Maybe it's not going to look the same, but from a demand perspective, from what I see, it's still going to be very, very strong. Any contrary points? This is a very good discussion or point to elaborate on. Any other feedback? Any thoughts?
I agree that it's gonna be strong. My buyer's being outbid by $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 over this price.
Yeah.
And for someone getting a loan, they can't do an appraisal waiver.
Yeah.
They can't compete.
Yeah.
It's cash
And
buyers.
it's an inflation, it's not real it's a bloated, it's not real. It's being, investors are, I'm sorry, but I'm very passionate about this because it's not fair. I mean, like investors who have cash are coming in and running up prices. It's not even like, it's not real. It's a fantasy, and like the real people can't get houses, and these guys are just gonna sell it to, and it's not even, nobody's living in the house. I don't know, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
It's not fair.
You had a question.
I'm sorry.
I had a question on the Rio Verde issue because I have looked into buying a home there. Lucky I didn't. But like Toll Brothers and Shea Homes over there at Rio Verde, due diligence, are they supposed to be checking out this water issue and projecting and putting money into, making the expansion for the water there? I was told they had some pipe problems and all kinds of things going on right now.
It's a great question, and it's an issue, and it's complex. I don't know that I have the specific answer around that, but relation to if they're building a subdivision, if there's 6 or more, then they need to follow that public report requirement, and they would need to get a certificate of assured water supply. As far as those specific home builders, I don't know if they built a subdivision or if it's in the other examples of the other developers that are around there that are not building 6 and they don't have a public report.
What's their responsibility and the sales department to tell the people coming in that are looking at the homes, we do have an issue with water here? They're not.
Sure.
So I was interested in finding out.
It's a good question. If they're building a subdivision, if there's 6, they have to follow that. If they're a developer that's not building 6, or if they don't need a public report, then they wouldn't have to follow that same format or that same requirement. As a licensee, going back to disclosing material facts, water is a material issue. So if you know that there's going to be water challenges, it probably is a good thing to talk about that and share that from a liability standpoint, as well as the benefit to the individual that's purchasing that. So yeah, this is big issues.
Do municipalities have requirements for water for that one-off builder?
Yeah, I can't speak to what the municipal requirements are, but I know that I don't believe they're the same as 6 or more in relation to a public report. In counties, most counties, a minor land division that triggers those requirements is 5, which is different than the 6 for the public report in Arizona law. I thought these were going to be softballs, gosh. No, I really appreciate all the questions. These are really good.
I haven't done one.
Do you
No
guys-
such thing.
Do you have any visibility to how many homes like REITs are purchasing, like Invitation Homes or Progress Homes?
Yeah, it's good. No.
No?
Mhm.
Okay.
I wonder, would that be MLS if they could provide some data around
Yeah,
that?
there's just so many different institution buyers.
Right.
I can't track them all, and I've been trying to, so this is something I was interested in.
Interesting. I'll take that back and think about that. But no, offhand, it's not something that I believe that we have.
We used to work with an accountant. They were buying like 80 homes a month.
Wow.
Just one of the REITs.
So you're the one.
Yeah.
Well, we got that. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Are you seeing the builders starting to get a little faster? I mean, complete the product a little earlier, or is it builders, are we starting? Is it starting?
Yeah. I think that they still, from what I read and what I hear from them, there's still a lot of pressure around workforce and material costs of things too, and the availability within the supply chain and all of that. But from the number of public report applications and development services applications we are receiving, in last year we approved a 10-year high we received a 10-year high of applications to our development services division for things like the public report, amendment to a public report, and the like. And then this year we're going to probably get very close to that. So that's a 10-year high. It was over 1,200 applications this last year. So there's a lot of activity and a lot of approvals that are being requested from us to meet that demand.
What is the percentage of your approval rate for those? I mean, are they pretty much approved? I mean, as long as you have everything in.
Yeah, so last year we approved about 890 public reports.
Okay.
And it's important to know too, we don't approve developments by way of saying, okay, you're okay to develop from we don't issue building permits. We essentially, we have that application process. We're to receive all of those different documents and then approve that report based on what's submitted too, that they meet all of those items as well. But we're not going out and inspecting the build or that from that perspective. But they are to receive that disclosure report from us. So,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. All right, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.
Can we get the last slide?
That's a good catch.
The clicker doesn't work. There you go. And feel free to reach out any